Hi, everybody. My name is Genevieve Johnson, and I am a play therapist here at the Bridge Center for Play Therapy in Boulder and soon to be in Longmont. So you are here to see the webinar about the power of play and understanding how play therapy can benefit your child. Kind of the reason that I'm doing this is because I've had a lot of experiences with parents telling their kids as they go back to the playroom, don't just play, which kind of brought up the need for me to begin to explain to parents what play is, how play is helping, and kind of go with a brain-based explanation. I love the brain, so you will hear quite a bit about it and sort of how play affects different parts of the body and different parts of the brain, and then eventually lead to transformation and healing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. Okay. We want this. Awesome. All right, welcome to the power of play. I already kind of told you why I was doing it. Just having parents and teachers sort of undervalue the importance of play and its ability to cause change. So here you are to learn about how extremely transformative play can actually be. So we'll cover, is playing really worth it? Despite the view that talk therapy might be more helpful. That typically tends to be something that I hear from parents when they say, oh, well, I don't want my kid to play. I'd rather them talk to you. So we'll kind of dive into, is that worth it? Two, what is play therapy? It's kind of these words that people imagine their child is going back and maybe they might not even know what the play is looking like. But we want to talk about, why is it more than just play? And why is it more than just fun? And why is it sometimes not even fun? Therapy sometimes is not fun, and play therapy is just the same. Three, how does play therapy work? We're going to talk a lot about what happens in the brain and the body during play and how that brings about healing. And then last, can my child benefit from play therapy? Therapy is a word that implies that there's something wrong. And I want to kind of reframe that for you into thinking, maybe my child just needs a chance to process something in a different way. Whatever they're doing in that moment, talking, throwing a fit, that way of processing is not working. So it's time to try something new. So what do we already know about play? These were just kind of some basic ideas that I've heard from parents and teachers, and being a teacher in the past myself, is that we play as kids. Play seems to diminish with age, so the older we get, the less we are expected to play. You don't see teenagers playing with dolls very often. Children are getting less and less free time and play. Crazy statistic is that inmates actually spend more time outside than today's kids. I know that play can happen all over, inside, outside, but this is just kind of an example of how we undervalue unstructured play. Does it impact learning? Does it get in the way? Maybe there are more important things to do than just play. Play versus electronics is a big one. Most kids have iPads or phones or TV. And what's the difference between playing with a doll outside with a friend versus playing a video game on an iPad? The elimination of recess has become a thing, with schools needing to budget and shorten the number of school days. They are starting to eliminate the amount of recess that kids are getting. It's actually doing a lot of harm. There are different kinds of play, different types that change with age. There are different cultural views about what play is, when it's okay to play. Sometimes there's needs to be more focus on work. There's definitely a lot of gender roles that come into play with play. Boys and dolls, girls with cars. And I guess overall, it's just, when did we stop playing? And is that important? So research shows us that play increases all of these areas. These are just a few of these areas. Why is my little thing? Okay. Oops. These are just a few of the areas that play increases. Social emotional awareness, so friends, cooperation, feelings, all those things develop during play. Gross motor skills, running, jumping, swinging, and even fine motor skills. You think about Legos and needing to take the tops off of things. Language and communication skills is pretty obvious. Creativity and problem solving. This could be problems between kids and playmates, or trying to figure out how to keep a block tower stable. Reading and writing. Imagine needing to write a menu for a pizza parlor. Memory, mathematics brings in things like sharing. All parents love sharing. Splitting, or even physics. A lot of things that I've done in the classroom have revolved around ramps and pulleys and learning about gravity and those types of things. So play really develops all different areas. Now, at the bottom, I have the freedom and safety to play is one of the ways to put your nervous system and brain into the optimal functioning zone. You're probably thinking, what is the optimal functioning zone? So we're going to talk about it like this. Imagine that your brain and body, your nervous system, are a stoplight. You have the red zone at the top, which is when things come in from your environment, you see it as a life threat. You begin to freeze, you begin to shut down, you prepare to die. Then you have things that are in the danger zone or the yellow zone. This is when you're deciding if you want to run away or you want to fight. And then you have the safety zone or the optimal zone or the green zone, whatever you want to call it. This is when your body and nervous system are regulated. This is where play takes place. It's important to notice that safety and play go together. Things come in to our body through the environment. We assess which category they might be in, red, yellow, or green, and then this helps us respond in a certain way. So we either freeze, shut down, we fight or flight, or we stay regulated. So we're always trying to integrate, but in a perfect world, we would always be in the optimal play mode. But, things come in to us through our environment that we might perceive as a threat or danger. This could be anything from experiencing violence to feeling embarrassed in front of the class to not having the same American Girl doll as your friend. There's all these different things that we perceive as threat or danger. And it all depends, again, on our perception, what area of the stoplight we're going to categorize what's happening to us. So we are always trying to integrate, but when early relationships, stressors in the environment, like unsafe neighborhoods, natural disasters, or genetic mishaps, throw up roadblocks, the natural movement towards integration is hindered in some areas. Our capacity for empathetic relationships, regulation, and choosing our behavior is compromised a lot, or a little, or a lot. It's important to remember also these roadblocks for a child or any person depends on how we perceive them. So you'll notice here there is at the end it says choosing behaviors. I have a lot of parents come to me and they're wanting their child to have a different behavior. So let's think about if your child is needing to change their behavior. Maybe they need to be in the safety zone. So when big negative feelings get elevated, our ability to make decisions and reasoning go down. So the more threat you perceive, the less information you're processing in your brain. And the beauty of play therapy is that it allows children the ability to cope with and process the big feelings so that they can make decisions, they can learn, they can interact. This is where we're wanting them to choose between having a tantrum in the middle of the store or saying, okay, I will get this cereal next time. This is where the choices either come and we're able to make them, or we go into the red and yellow zone and all choices go away. So back to the zones, kind of a closer look, and based on what we know. Again, red zone is the freeze. And I've added in here that there's no cognitive process happening in the red zone. You are shutting down, you are preparing to die. There is nothing going through your cognitive processing. In the yellow, you're doing fight or flight, you're in anxiety and rage, and you are having a very difficult time making decisions. So your cognitive processing is very, very impaired. You think of this as when you're in fight or flight, you're not going to think about other options you might have. You're just going to run or you're going to fight. And then in the optimal green zone, you have all these wonderful things: social engagement, eye contact, connection, language, integration, transformation, behavior changes, higher processing. This is the zone that we as play therapists sort of work in. We'll take kids who come in with a red or yellow zone and create a space for them to play and have some safety. So we talked about what it's like to not be in the play mode. And now here are some things that happen when you are in the play mode. So let's just imagine we are all in the optimal processing zone. You're going to move memories from your implicit memory, your body and your feelings, to explicit. So this is stories. Think of it as you're moving from memories that don't have words or like cognitive process to a story you can tell about something that happened to you. When you're in the play mode, you're integrating and creating new neural pathways because your body feels safe and you have the ability to do that. When you're in the play mode, you're making sense of the world. This is when you see kids playing house or playing truck driver. They're playing out what they're seeing in their world as a way of understanding it. And when you're playing, you are functioning in your optimal zone. So what's implicit versus explicit? This is just kind of a quick rundown. Implicit, you can think of it as like an undercurrent. It's always happening. You're experiencing it through body sensations, so warm chest, tight stomach when you get nervous. Behavioral impulses comes through smell. And important thing to acknowledge is that from birth to 18 months, you only have implicit memory capability. There's no timestamp on it, so past, present, future are not a thing. And when you recall these, you don't actually have the awareness that you're recalling them. So think of it as implicit memory can often be very reactionary, where you do things and you look back and say, wow, I had no idea that I just did that. Now, explicit is different. This is related to facts and stories. So being able to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, which sort of puts together the timepiece. We have past and future. So something happened to me in the past. I hope it goes different in the future. Those types of things. Recalling explicit memory takes conscious attention. I guess the best example I can give for this is when you're taking a math test and you need to remember that time that the teacher told you about the Pythagorean theorem. And that is an explicit memory that you are remembering. All these memories are stored in the hippocampus, which is your memory center of your brain, and also uses your prefrontal cortex that helps you make decisions. And all these memories we're using to influence our behavior. This is where consequence and rational thinking begin to take place, where kids can use the idea of, I kicked my mom and got put in my room last time I did that, so maybe I want to make a different choice. That's what we're all hoping for, but in order for that to happen, they need to have explicit memory. So think of implicit as reactionary, explicit is more responsive. So now that we know all that, how can we use play to heal? We want to put ourselves back in the optimal zone to play out stories and experiences in order to integrate them. And what's really, really crucial about this is the safety piece. If you are not feeling safe and you're not in the optimal zone, you're not going to be able to take implicit memories and process them into explicit stories. It's just not going to happen. So in the playroom, we sort of deal with two different pieces to create transformation. The first is creating a play sanctuary. There's a lot that goes into this, which is why creating a play sanctuary doesn't happen like in the grocery store or at home or those types of things. We're creating a literal room for kids to show us what's happening for them. This is where they feel free, where they feel protected, where there's boundaries, which to them equals safety, and where there's a lot of acceptance. What goes into acceptance is the relationship. So play within a relationship creates safety automatically. For the most part, safety is the first requirement to therapeutic change. Safe place plus safe person equals optimal zone. This is why, it doesn't happen elsewhere. This is why having a play therapy room with specific boundaries and a specific person make it much safer and much easier for kids to explore and play things out. Now, another beauty about play is that when we are in a safety mode, play allows us a safe distance to work on what's closest to our hearts. So you think about, actually, let me just tell you a story. I'm going to read you a little story out of a book. It's called The Interpersonal Neurobiology of Play, that sort of describes what I'm talking about. So this is about a little girl named Alice. Her parents brought her in for play therapy several months earlier because they're concerned about her academic development. Alice is 6 years old and refusing to speak at school. Up until this point, she had said very few words to me, her mother during the first two sessions, and she avoided eye contact as much as possible. So knowing that, I'm going to read you the story. Alice handed me two puppets, a wolf and a dolphin, as soon as we got to the playroom. She got the doctor's kit off the shelf and seemed eager to play. I could see from the look in her eye that this was what we were going to do today. It's not the first time we had played with these particular puppets, but it was the first time she had showed any interest in the medical kit. I put the wolf puppet in my left hand and the dolphin on my right. Alice immediately began stuffing the wolf's mouth full of medical instruments with the doctor's play kit. Then she taped the jaws tightly shut with a Velcro strap. As the wolf, named Wolfie, I could easily imagine how overwhelmed and helpless he must have felt. I moved the dolphin puppet, Dory, close to Wolfie's face and said, "Oh, Wolfie, you can't talk with all that stuff in your mouth." Wolfie whimpered and moaned, tilting his head slightly. "Maybe I can help you," continued Dory. But Wolfie began jumping up and down on the floor, making angry noises. Alice smiled. Dory, Dolphin, tried to empathize with Wolfie to help him calm down. Alice laughed out loud and said to me, "Do it again." I complied, making Wolfie jump up and down somewhat more dramatically, making a variety of angry and distressed sounds. I let Wolfie rest a moment while Dory moved in to say, "You're really angry, Wolfie." With mounting excitement, Alice commanded me to do the sequence again. This time, Wolfie hopped around in a circle, making loud protesting noises, and then fell over on his side. Dory came close to Wolfie. "Here, let me help you," she said. She took the Velcro strap off his jaws. Wolfie vigorously spit out the medical instruments. Gasping, he turned to her and whispered, "Thank you, Dory. Thank you." So this is just an example of something that might be played out in the playroom, and you're probably wondering, well, why does this relate to Alice's refusal to speak at school? Well, further inquiry kind of brings up the fact that when Alice was younger, she needed dental surgery just before her 3rd birthday. Her father said even now Alice didn't like going to the dentist, but what it turned out was that they had taken Alice to a dentist who specialized in working with kids. He kind of had a brisk treatment approach, and Alice was really overwhelmed at the dentist to the point where her mom had to restrain her. Although, when the actual surgery was taking place, Alice was under anesthesia, and so has no cognitive memory of what the surgery was like. But her implicit memory is still intact about how frightening and possibly painful the experience was, especially because she's in a surgery room with no parent present. So that's just kind of a clear example of how implicit memory is being moved into explicit memory, as Alice is taking an experience she has no words for and playing it out. She's showing the therapist the feeling rather than describing it. So, closer look at integration in the playroom. Outside the playroom, you have an experience, your system is overloaded, and you have the inability to process. With that comes distress and unwanted behaviors. So in Alice's case, she had the dental surgery. She had a system overload to the point where her mom had to restrain her. She had the inability to process it and therefore had an unwanted behavior of refusing to speak. So there's difficulty choosing behaviors, hard time connecting, lack of empathy. All these things happen when you have a system overload and you are not able to process it. However, inside the playroom, you take the experience and you add the freedom and safety of the play sanctuary, remembering that being in play mode is the optimal zone. You have a brain and a body that's regulated, and then you process the experience through play, moving from implicit to explicit. This is going to minimize the distress. It's going to increase understanding. It's going to decrease unwanted behaviors, increase relationships, empathy, emotional well-being. So all of these things are coming through from a process where a child has no language and they just have the feeling or the body sensation through play into a way that they can understand. So I think this is a really important slide to remember, that in order to minimize and decrease unwanted behaviors, you need to be in the optimal zone. Walking around in our day-to-day lives, there are moments when we're in the optimal zone, but not always. And so coming to play therapy is a way to ensure that your child is processing these things through the optimal play zone, green mode, whatever you want to call it. So finally, after all this, is play therapy right for my child? I guess I have a few questions up here. Do you have unwanted behaviors? Do you have a difficult time making friends? Do they have, big life events that are happening, strong emotions, difficulty in school? The list goes on about why parents come and bring their kids to play therapy. But what I really want you to take away from this is the idea that it's perception. Remember, what could seem minor to you could have put your child in the red zone. Now, if they're in the red zone, remember, they're not processing what's happening, and they're going to stay reactive, and they're going to create unwanted behaviors until they are in a safe enough spot to play it out. They're going to play in the green zone and be able to respond rather than react. So I hope you found that kind of informative. It's very brain heavy and information heavy, but the big takeaways would be the stoplight, as well as the implicit versus explicit. Those are the things that are happening in the brain and the body. What we as play therapists do is create a space for a child to come in, feel safe, feel like they're in a place where they can be in the optimal zone and to play and show us what's happening in their world, and then move it from the implicit to the explicit. So thanks again for taking the time to listen. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email, Genevieve@thebridgecenterforplaytherapy.com. Also, my phone number is on here. Go ahead and give me a call if you have questions, want to schedule an appointment for you or your child, and hope to hear from you soon. Alrighty, guys, so that was your quick introduction into the power of play and why it works. So hope you enjoyed, and see you next.